Welcome to the Karen Mitches podcast. Today I have Ben Norman Davies.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
How is your day going?
My day is going very well. I had a meeting about a festival I'm doing. I'm doing Northern Lights Comedy Festival, and I'm gearing up for that.
So this is a festival you're producing.
I'm producing.
Amazing.
And, I'm teaming up with Camp Tamaqua. It's out in Algonquin Park, and you get 2 days of cabins, camp activities, and then we're doing comedy workshops where you can do like sketch comedy, improv, and stand-up workshops taught by professionals. We've got Chris Robinson, who's been on Just for Laughs. He's got his own comedy special. Ava Val, very excited to have them come and teach. And we're doing...
That's amazing. Yeah. I saw Chris Robinson at the Big Yuck Yucks special they do on New Year's. He's so talented.
So funny.
And then Ava is... Actually, she's been on my podcast, and I'm a big fan of hers.
Yes. Well, they are incredible. And we're really excited. And it's 2 days. So it's $600, but you're getting a cabin, you're getting food, you're getting workshops, and then you're getting, a 2-day gala of, comedy, where I am the master of ceremonies, and we've got 10 incredible comics, and then kind of like a 2-day camp vacation getaway.
Yeah, I love it because it's like camp for adults.
That's it. It's exactly
with comedy.
Camp for adults.
What's the camp called?
It's Camp Tamaqua.
And what's it near?
You're in Algonquin Park.
Okay, that's the
like
best
Huntsville.
place to camp, right?
Yeah, comedy under the stars. Please come join us September 12th to the 14th. NorthernLightsComedyFestival.com. And you just register and, book your spot.
Okay, that sounds amazing. So you've been, involved with comedy for a number of years, but it's like producing, performing, you do improv, you do acting,
yes.
Everything.
I'm a self-proclaimed Renaissance man. No, it's hard to see myself as a headliner. I'm somebody more, a comedy producer. I'm a comic, but I'm also an actor. I'm a writer. I'm a poet. I'm a content creator. I've done a lot of different things, and I'm somebody that has a real love for comedy. When I was young, I did improv. I did sketch comedy. I was always in plays. And
so you found that as a teenager?
Yeah. I was like a theater kid, and I was like a total geek. I was but I was like the drammy jock. I was in all the plays, but I played basketball.
Yeah.
I was somebody that was a filmmaker, but I loved, the Jays, or I was always somebody that really wanted to be in comedy troupes and, improv troupes. But I also, played hockey and all these different things. So I had a kind of a mix of both worlds.
I love that. And then are you from Toronto?
Yeah, I'm from Toronto. I guess I host a monthly show called Gluten Free Comedy. And also I co-host a show with Danielle Kerr called Improv At. And that show is going to be 2 years in November.
Oh, shit.
Gluten Free will be 4 years in October.
So Gluten Free is like a standard kind of comedy show at Comedy Bar?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a themed show. It's basically so.
Oh, I didn't know it was themed.
Well, it's basically it's a shout out to my partner, and they have the gluten allergy.
Oh, okay.
And they've turned my life into a gluten-free comedy.
Okay.
And so this is my, I guess my lactose-friendly, oat milk preferred gluten-free showcase. And it just became a brand, I guess. That was a joke I did 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's funny how things kind of evolve over a time where it becomes like a branding thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, this is gluten-free comedy. And then like a whole bunch of life happens. And maybe the theme is a little outdated, but it's
I
kind of the
still love
brand.
it because I feel like there was this moment when they would put gluten free on everything, but it'd be like something that never had gluten in it. So,
Well, and I eat wheat. Like so the way I've had to kind of compensate my life to be able to accommodate is a joke. But for me, I guess gluten free comedy started as a park show in the pandemic,
oh,
and it was
nice.
4 years ago. And I remember moving it to Comedy Bar, and it was my first show produced, gluten free comedy. And since then, there's been shows. I've had all kinds of themes since gluten free comedy, but it's lived on. Like I think back to, so there's Curious Comedy in Liberty Village, but then, Broken Dreams comedy at the Comedy Lab. John Morley and I did gluten based comedy at Salto.
I love John Morley. I just had him on.
John Morley is a wonderful human being. He was one of the few people that I guess embraced me when I came out on the scene.
Yeah,
Um,
he was important to me because he let me host Salto, that open mic, and so it was how I got my first hosting experience.
yeah, no, me too. Like I produced some shows with him, and I actually remember we had a show at Film Cafe where he was doing the posters, my Film Cafe posters, and it was like an open mic.
Yeah.
But that was like 4 years ago now.
So Film Cafe is a really cool venue, but I find it's a little bit hard to do comedy there.
So Film Cafe, I've produced over maybe 15 shows at Film Cafe, and I've done improv there, I've done stand up, and it is an obstacle course of comedy. You've got espresso machines, people are, maybe not even there to watch a show.
Yeah.
They're
It's
having
Kensington
tea.
Market,
It's
so the
Kensington.
vibe is chaotic.
It's chaotic, and I always loved it because it was a vibe. You could go in and you have a cup of tea, have an empanada, and watch some stand-up comedy. I don't produce there anymore. I found it was hard to really sell tickets, and so it was just a free show, and it was a mic, and that's
Yeah.
fine. And I do free shows, and I do mics. But in the long term, if you're looking to sell tickets, it's not a place to sell tickets. Like
Yeah.
I'd love to do like maybe a poetry night there. And
Yeah.
it's like
Oh,
a
that has
drop-in.
the most poetry mic vibe.
Yeah, and that's right for that kind of venue. And a stage, having like a proper stage and having the right atmosphere is really important. And I think about all kinds of different shows. Like I had the Comedy Blender at Mandy's, Oak Oat
Okay,
Milk.
so Mandy's is now the Epochal Imp.
Right. Yes.
And did there used to be more stuff at Mandy's? Because I feel like nowadays, other than like the Black Sheep contest, which is there probably monthly, I don't hear about anything out there.
Yeah. Well, Mandy's was 121 Diner with Ernie Vicente, uh, but then they went to Mandy's, and then they changed the brand, and so I think Mandy isn't there anymore. I think I think they still book, but it's not like it was. It's under kind of new
Yeah.
management now.
Okay, and they do maybe less comedy.
They do less comedy now. I
Okay,
think
fair enough.
it's more kind of drag and
Oh, because
you know,
Mandy is Mandy Goodhandy.
Yeah.
And so she's a drag
yeah.
performer. Okay, yeah.
So that's it's more targeted to that.
Oh my God. Drag queens put on such better shows than comedians.
They spend more money. There's more money in drag than comedy.
Yeah. Like, I feel like, especially because a lot of the comedy audience is sort of a casual audience. Like, they're just out for a night of fun, and I don't know, maybe drag queens are more fun.
It's more well. It depends. Like I think comedy, there's a place for it, but it's got to be like so. When you get into stand-up comedy, for me, I have like a formula now. Like there's certain things that work in certain venues, and if you want to sell tickets, you have a couple things to consider.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to do a venue like Mandy's or Comedy Bar, there's kind of different strategies around it, and me coming on 4 years, I approach it kind of differently. And so if I'm in a venue where I know I can't sell tickets, I'll just kind of throw the gloves off and be like, we're going to have like a workshop show, basically, where we're going to go and we're going to perform our best 7 minutes. We're going to do our improv games, and we're going to workshop them and try to make them better. And if it's a situation where the venue doesn't require a fee, you can go kind of like a groove bar situation where you can just kind of go in. I'm okay with running mics. I'm okay with being a guy that runs a monthly mic. But if you're at a Legion, you're doing a festival, if you're running in Comedy Bar. See, Comedy Bar is one of those where every show I do at Comedy Bar, I feel like it's the last. And I don't mean that literally, but in the sense that there's so many producers. There's so many comics, and it's an honor, really, for me to have been able to keep up and produce a show.
How long has Gluten-Free been in that space?
Gluten-Free has been at Comedy Bar. It will be 4 years in October.
That's amazing.
And it was my first show. And so there's all these other shows that I've done, but Gluten-Free has kind of lived on. And I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
That's my legacy in the Toronto community. And the way I build a show, I like to have a headliner, maybe a bringer, and then you have another producer and then maybe another headliner. And then it's like comedy analytics. There's like a formula to it. If you get into paid social, you start looking at like, how you promote a show, you can really get into the nitty gritty of how you want to, sell your show into what audience. And there's like analytics that you can look at. And so if I'm doing Comedy Bar, I know that I have to bring people myself. And if I don't do a paid social campaign, which I should, I need to come up with a way to get people engaged and really talking about it. And then it's branding. You build a show, and then people know it's good, and they keep coming back because they're like, oh, I've seen Gluten-Free, it's funny. And that's how you do it. And that's why I could never change the name.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what, it's going to have to be that at Comedy Bar. So I guess my formula is, you have, somebody that's an attractive headliner that's really good, like is clearly really good, and they have a pedigree. You have another one, and then you have like these bringer comics. And I don't mean bringer in the sense that like they have to bring somebody, but there are people that are newer comics, and they're really good. They're really funny, but they don't have the stage time. And so if somebody's really funny and they can bring 4 people, it helps.
Yeah,
It helps.
for sure.
And it's not like, it's nothing, like it's not like malicious, but in terms of building, the show, it helps. And then when somebody's like, I'm a headliner, but they're like, just like very toxic, they're not going to help promote my show. So I try to bring people that are good vibes, like somebody that maybe jives with me, that, we've worked together or I've seen them perform, and they have like a positive kind of energy about them. I know that, like, listen, kindness is like an underrated skill in comedy.
Yeah.
And so being like a good person is like half the battle when you're booking someone.
Yeah. And I feel like people, if you're new to comedy, you might think like, oh, it's not hard to be kind. But I think like a lot of people burn out and get kind of, they might not even realize they're burned out, but they're working really hard at it, but they have no energy left and they're getting frustrated. So then their toxicity starts to come out. Oof. And it's,
this is like comedy therapy, right? We're just gonna let it all out. No, I think there's a lot of that. I think there's a lot of mental illness. I think there's a lot of diversity in the scene, and different backgrounds and intellectual capabilities. And I think at the end of the day, you've got to just focus on, being funny.
Yeah.
And really just like persevering, I guess. And someone like me, I guess I'm the antithesis of somebody that's kind of toxic. Now, all the toxic people are going to hate me for this, and all my narcissistic friends are going to hate me. But like, I'm not a roast battler.
Yeah.
Like, I'm somebody that goes out and I have like weird observations. I have, like on relationships, on family. I'm not rated R. I'm probably like AA, PG-13. But some people, they aren't even RAA. They're
NC-17.
Yeah, like they're just like off the map, and they're trying to be these guys at Yuck Yucks or guys that walk the line, but ultimately they're just trying to go to therapy and express some weird emotions that they're having a hard time going through, and they use a microphone to express it. And for me, there's a real population of douchebags. Excuse my French. Male and female, though.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like it's not just like all the guys are toxic. All the females. There's some great ones. Really good ones.
I still remember being at Ladies' Night and James Cummins went on stage after like there'd just been like a lot of women up ahead of him, and he goes like, now I know what it's like for you guys. He's like, because you guys are toxic too. Yeah. And it's like, it's shocking some of the things people say.
I remember there was a great line Ashwan Singh said to me driving in a car. He said that comedy is the default. You have to be funny.
Yeah.
Like if you're not funny, then you're not even supposed to be there, really. But being like a good person and getting along with somebody and having a rapport, that's like 80% of it sometimes.
Yeah.
Is just having that ability to be fun and go out and have a good time, not be so wound up. You're trying to be funny, you're trying to have a good time. You're trying to create like a lighthearted environment where people are laughing.
Yeah.
And that's maybe me as a producer saying that, where I'm like, I want to create an environment that's fun and something that I would want to go to and I would have a good time. And so if it's just like, the comic shows up, they do their like, their 8 minutes and they're out of there, then I have no sense of them. I have no rapport with them, and they're really good, but like, we're not like friends, and that's fine. And that's totally cool. And like, if you've got 1 million views or whatever, like I love it.
Yeah.
But in terms of like my show and like my experiences, like I need to have something, like let's like talk to me for 5 minutes, about something, and it's not such a transaction,
Yeah.
And, like so many people reach out to me and they just assume that I want to book them because of, how many views they have or what they've done. And like, I don't book like that. Like I book, it's like a mixtape of comedy for me, and like I have like a batting lineup of comics, and I have my leadoff hitter, I have my number 3 high average comic, I have my home run hitter comic, and then your 9-hole comic, and it's like a mixtape.
Yeah.
And I can only make that tape if I've heard the songs, and I can't really listen to it through YouTube. I have to be there. I have to be at Yuck Yucks watching you, or I need to be on a show and you just went up and you killed. And I don't really like. I just find the videos, it's so impersonal. Like I'm watching your video and it's like it's sick. You did great, but I really have no sense of you.
I was at the Big Six competition last night, and I was talking to Ryan, who is like the booker at Yuck Yucks, and he said like with the amateur night, he doesn't watch anybody's videos. He says he can't go off of it because it just isn't like, it could be edited, but it's also like you might have been one way in your video, but you've done more mics since then. And he's just like,
that's interesting.
He's just taking a chance when he doesn't know the name. He'll just be like, well, we'll pull this new person up and see what they're like on the stage. And so
then once
people
they're
can
on
come
the
up and be
stage-
horrific,
Yeah.
and then you'll never come back for certain people. But even like some people who bomb their first time, he'll give them a chance like a year later.
Right. Yeah. And I think when you get into the business of comedy, and this is something I appreciate more, you know, as I guess a producer, you know, and people that really commit their lives, you know, to owning a club, to doing it every day, like the backroom guys. I have a lot of respect for the backroom
Me too.
guys, you know, and they've done an incredible job. It's not for me to do it like that.
Yeah.
I can't do it like that, you know, and I'm not out
Like you mean to have like a full-time
to
job?
do
and
it
you've got-
every day like that. Like I see some comics out there and they're out 7 nights a week.
Yeah.
You know, and they're twice a night, you know, and they're hustling and they're grinding. And as a producer, I grind. I hustle just as hard as anybody, but I have different areas that I hustle in, you know, and I'm not just like a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
In terms of like all I'm doing is comedy. Like I've got a lot of different things I'm trying to do right now.
Yeah.
And that's cool. And so when I see somebody that's out on, you know, they're going to Winnipeg and then, you know, they're in Halifax and then they're going, you know, all over Ontario and then they're going to go to New York for a little bit. Like I'm not doing that. I wish I was.
Yeah.
But like I'm out, you know, 4 times a week at most.
Yeah.
You know? I'm producing 2 shows a month. And for the average bear, that's a lot, you know? But for me to get to the next level, like I'm not at the next level.
Do you
know?
want to be?
I do. Like as a comic, I do, you know, but I know that I haven't put in the man hours. Like I have a comedy album. I have 40 minutes.
What's your album called?
Fragile and Proud.
Fragile and Proud.
Yeah. Like,
And what?
that's
where
on
can you get it?
Yeah, you can get that on Spotify. You can get that on iTunes and check it out.
Nice.
Like it's like I have 40 minutes there.
I love it.
So like I've done things. You know, I have a book of poetry I wrote. I did a couple short films.
What's your poetry book called?
I turn to face myself and I see that I am missing.
I love it.
And
So poetry, I think, was that something you started a long time ago?
So I was always a writer. When I was younger, you know, I wrote poems and I really started writing by, you know, journaling and writing short stories and writing poems, little vignettes. And then that grew into screenplays and, you know, bigger projects. But yeah, you want to know something? I love poetry.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those guys that is trying to separate, you know, the poetry, the variety, and the stand-up.
Yeah.
And it's hard because, you know, I'll never forget.
You need to feed like all of them.
Well, I learned a valuable lesson there where I tried to merge them outside of kind of a variety setting. And when you're in a variety show, you can get away with that where you're just kind of like, you know, we're doing music, we're doing comedy, improv, and poetry, and that's cool. But if you're doing like an open mic and it's just comedy, and you then throw down this like serious poem you wrote, the vibes I got, I'll never forget it. Just like looking at the other comics and just like how catty they were, and they were like, he's losing it. You know? And it's like, that's fine, you know?
Yeah.
But it was a lesson learned for
One
me.
of my good friends is a poet, and he saw that I was doing comedy, and he was so excited for me. And then he's like, do you think if next time I'm in Toronto, we could find a mic that we can do comedy and poetry at? And I was like, I'm not bringing you near my comedy friends. They're mean.
They're mean. And they roast you, you know? And they're like...
And there's something
They make note of
missing
you.
in some comics can't be sincere, and they can't some of them can't watch a musical. They just don't have like.
Well, that's like I'm coming from that background, and that's the funny thing is like as an actor, like I was an actor before I was a comic.
Yeah.
You know, and so when I was younger, I would do, you know, plays, and I've done a few musicals, and
Sorry.
no, and like as a kid, like my dream was like Broadway.
Yeah.
You know? And like SNL, you know, and that's what I was like, I'm going to be one of the kids in the hall, you know, and that's where I was at as a teenager. And that never happened, obviously. And so I guess instead of just grieving that, I went into stand up, and I still act, and I'm still acting, but comedy was a way for me to kind of write, perform, and produce, all in one, and workshop some of the ideas that I'd written, and give myself a platform to do it. So I still do sketch. I still I have a screenplay I'm writing right now that's loosely based on my brother's life, called Cash Kings, and it's loosely based on the ATM racket, the Toronto ATM racket, in the early 2000s.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
So I'm working on that.
I love stories about, I don't know, like people trying for success.
Coming of age stories.
Yeah.
Well,
and when you get to like go into like the world of something, like I'm not like interested in like playing poker, but I love to like watch a poker movie just to like find out what poker people are doing, or like anything that's like some other world.
Yeah. So I'm trying to recapture the times of, those early days when he went to the States and bought ATM parts and built ATMs and then sold them to convenience stores and different bars, and then the characters that came in and the people that have died, and the whole drama and my role in it, and then what became of me in that story, and my coming of age story through that story.
That sounds amazing.
So I'm working on that right now. Look out for that.
I love it. Okay, can we go back to your comedy album for a second?
Sure.
Because like I have a lot of material and I don't get enough time to like try it on stage, so I'm still far off from recording, but I want to like start mapping it in my head of like did you produce it yourself?
So yeah, I co-produced it with the Comedy Lab. I'll give a big shout out to Danton just for his help. Shout out to Danton. Here, let's take one quick step back while we talk about Danton for a second.
Okay.
In the pandemic, I was maybe 2 years in. I'd done Second City, and there was these park shows, and I remember Danton was hosting them, and I was, performing. Like I have another comedy album, which is a sketch album, and so in like 2020, I had just released this album called Good in You. And I was like workshopping it at Mike's, and that's how I met Danton. And he basically inspired me to be a producer, just in the way that he was running his mic. So I did a park show where I'll never forget it. Danton and Black Sam were this like team, and Danton loaned me a speaker and a mic. And I bought a generator, and we did a park show. And
what park?
It was Earl's Court Park. John was on it. We had Rush.
John Morley?
John Morley was on it, and it was like guerrilla media stand-up comedy.
I love it.
I was like, we're gonna do a show, and so that was my first produced show, and that was 2021 or whatever that was, around that time. And in the pandemic.
It's almost like a no man's land where time was
just
hard to measure.
And so this was before the Comedy Lab. This was just as the Comedy Lab was happening. And so, I'd do this show, people come, it was like semi-successful, but there was a lot of comics that came, and they came out for me, and it was like my first show.
Yeah.
And so very quickly after that, through my brother who owned the ATM at Comedy Bar, I knew Gary, and Gary also let
Your
me.
Your brother owned the ATM at Comedy Bar.
Yeah.
I love it.
And not only that, maybe about 3-4 years earlier, I did a short film called Norman. And it was a story about a struggling comic that reinvents himself. And I shot it partially at Comedy Bar. And
So it was a fictional or a doc?
It was, yeah, it was fictional. It was fictional.
Okay.
It was like a science fiction.
Did you play Norman?
Yeah, I was Norman. I played Norman, and you can find that on YouTube. That's I went like I almost brought it to L.A. and all the festivals, and I spent a little bit of money on it, but I eventually just wanted people to see it, and so I just put it on YouTube so you can see it.
Nice.
So I guess flash to like, Danton and I, we do this park show, and I then take that show or that idea to Comedy Bar, and Danton's on the show. I have Luke Lindell on that show, and Ernie Vicente is on that show. Rachel Manson is on that show, and that's my first show at Comedy Bar, and I called it Gluten Free Comedy.
Amazing.
And that was my first show, and from there I went on to produce hundreds of shows since that. But my relationship with Danton starts to blossom a little bit, and he tells me this idea about a bar that he's working on, and would I want to do a show. And so we created Broken Dreams Comedy, and I had a good 8-month run at the lab. And God bless Danton, he taught me how to be a producer through those 8 months.
I love it.
Where I was, each month we had an Eventbrite, I was reaching out to comics, I was booking it, and he was building the lab.
Yeah.
So I was like, I had front row seats to that, really.
Yeah.
And looking back on kind of what that turned out to be, I was in a very unique opportunity to learn.
Were all your park shows in Earl's Court?
Yes, I had an Earl's Court one.
What neighborhood is that?
Corso Italia.
So like Blue or West?
Lansdowne in St. Clair.
Okay.
And so, the world started coming back, and then Danton and I, we're doing Broken Dreams Comedy, but I was also doing Gluten Free Comedy. So I had 2 shows suddenly on the go.
Fuck, that's a lot.
Where I was like, we were in the pandemic, and I was fighting for my life as a producer, as a comic, and in some ways I still am, but the expectations are lower now, where it's like I've sold out shows, I've done Legion shows, I'm doing a festival, I've been prolific in my pursuit of comedy and the Toronto community, and I've served my whole life, and I've contributed. So in terms of my measure of success, am I a headliner at Just for Laughs? No, I'm not. But do I do kick-ass shows? Do I get booked here or there? That's enough for me right now.
And it matters to the people in this scene, because somebody has to build it.
I hope so.
There has to be these people like you who build it, so there is like the places to go to perform.
Yeah, like I thank Tonight Bar, I thank Film Cafe, I thank Salto, the Legion shows. I've had Belleville shows. I've done like all kinds of I've taken myself on tour.
Yeah.
And so I've done things. And in terms of my comedy itself, yeah, I did 40 minutes of a comedy album. And
That's
if you want to hear it, go check it out.
Okay, I'm definitely checking out your comedy album.
Yeah.
But can you tell me a bit of like how the comedy album process worked for you?
Yeah, no, for sure. So, sorry, to get back to what we were talking about before, my love affair with Danton. So Danton produced my comedy album as well.
Sweet.
And so he has an editor. He has a sound studio in the basement there that's pretty good for, sound.
Yeah.
And so, flash to last summer. Actually, no, sorry, it was like February. I did 2 shows at the Comedy Lab, Fragile and Proud, and then so what I did is I got it recorded, and I put it on a distro kit, and that you pay like, I don't know, I think it's like $25 or $30 like a year or something, and then you can advertise it on Spotify and Amazon and YouTube, and so that's what I did.
But it's through DistroKit?
Yeah, DistroKit.
Okay.
Yeah, you got and you can, you know, like you can. Some people call it a podcast, but it's your work. And I had 14 tracks, and so I'm not signed to a label. You know, I don't have an agent anymore. I did. I've had agents, and I've been represented. I'm not right now, but I'm going to start looking again. So please keep your ears open.
Nice. Yeah.
And you know, I have been represented, but in terms of the album, I was like, fuck it. This is my experience. I've been doing it for 7-8 years. These are my jokes, and I'm getting sick of them, and I need to archive them, and I need to move on. So this is my experience, and I'm okay with it. And I know comics that have waited 20 years to do it, and that's them. And I don't know where I'll be in 20 years. But at that time, I was producing close to 5 shows a month, and I was getting booked, and I was touring, and, you know, I had done my time in Second City. I had written, you know, every day, and I had 40 minutes of material that I was ready to perform. And I'm not even that person anymore. When I look back on who that person was, like I've turned a whole page, personally, professionally, from a comedic standpoint. So it was a nice kind of ending to a period in time. And, you know, and my friendship with Danton and even Danielle Kerr, and, you know.
So what I find is, because I've been talking to people about my wanting to record, and they're like, oh, you can't do that. Like, because I'm only 2 years in. So people are like, well, people don't record till they're 5 years in or 8 years in. And I'm like, I'm okay to put out an album that feels a bit amateurish, because I don't think I'm going to be doing the material I wrote in my first 2 years in my 6th year. So I don't, I want to record it now. And I think, like, maybe I'll feel the material is bad, but I'm sure there'll also be other things, like if I self-record, or I think I'll make other mistakes as well. And it's like the whole first album will be an amateur attempt in my first 2 years. And then like my next album is after like 4 years, and it's like I'll amp it up in every way.
Yeah, it represents like the period in your life, you know, and there are some jokes that maybe just aren't relevant anymore. The times have changed, and you don't want to really talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
So you want to kind of retire that joke.
Yeah.
And like I remember George Carlin I think it was George Carlin or Louis C.K. said this about George Carlin, but that at the end of each year, he would basically just retire all his jokes. And I don't do that. Like I still hold on to jokes from like 3 years ago or whatever that is. But at the end of each year, he'll basically just throw away his set and start writing new. And that's why they're great. They're prolific. But it allows you to kind of just keep fresh and, you know, not relying on old, you know, punchlines. And I'm not saying I'm doing that or I'm striving to do that, but that's what that was for me.
And I feel like there's certain jokes like that could last your life, but there's a lot of jokes, it's like you were in this particular phase of your life, so that's what was interesting for you to talk about, but then you're sick of talking about it. Like, and then there's certain things that are of the time. Like I open, like my tight 5 opens with a Karen joke, but like it's great right now because it's like a thing that's it's part of the zeitgeist, but it's like the zeitgeist changes, and then it's like there's another thing that you want to like open up with.
Well, and things get dated, you know. Like you can look at any comic. Like if you watch not Louis C.K., Andrew Dice Clay now, and you're like, look at those jokes. You're like, that's not hitting as hot, you know. Dickory Dock, you know. No,
I remember when Andrew Dice Clay came out. I was a kid, and we went to church on Sunday. And I remember sitting in like my minivan in like, we would park at this older lady's house near the church. So we're sitting in her driveway, and my mom is like talking to her on the steps, and my brother puts it in the car. And so we're laughing, and then we're like, George, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off.
Yeah, you weren't allowed to watch that. Like, that was the stuff. Like, I remember as a kid, my mom hated Eddie Murphy. And she just, and like my brother and I, we would watch Delirious, and I grew up on Delirious. Chappelle, Robin Williams, like these were my guys.
Yeah.
But there was something about the profanity of Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy for my mom, that was too much.
Yeah.
And all she heard was fuck shit. And I was like, Mom, there's like a genius here.
Yeah.
And she was just so old school that as soon as she heard, certain, cocksucker, motherfucker, or whatever.
Yeah.
It was it, and she didn't care. She didn't care about how funny it was. But it's funny when you say it like that, like it's funny.
Yeah.
So.
And I feel like, I don't know. There's just certain things like it could never be. There was something about the 80s that it was a little bit uptight, and we were children, but like
cocaine was a hell of a drug.
Yeah.
It was a different time, more progressive, and I think we're in a time now where I don't want to say we're in cancel culture, but we're definitely in a period where guys like Andrew Dice Clay wouldn't exist today.
Okay, so do you also think like we're almost like too on the nose about things? Like,
well, social media has like just destroyed any kind of
perspective.
Yeah, like you're getting all perspectives.
And then, but I also feel like some people go down such a path so far that it becomes like I'm going to read every situation through this lens that it doesn't belong to every situation, and overanalyze and overthink everything, and then there becomes this like ongoing conversation that's maybe like detached from reality.
Well, like misinformation is a big thing. We're in a time now where social media is painting pictures of people that are inaccurate.
Yeah.
And so and then people are filling in the blanks with like comments on a post that then gets like goes viral or whatever, and it's you've got to be really careful about what you say and how you say it, and to craft a joke, there's groups upon groups upon groups that are waiting for you to cross them, and as a comic, like it's kind of your job to cross them, so
yeah.
There's always this juxtaposition with that as a comic where and like for me, sometimes I feel like I'm too soft, where I'm like, I'm not roasting enough, or I'm not, toxic enough, and I have these thoughts sometimes. I'm like, I'm not uncensored enough.
But it is because as much as we say like that supposedly there's cancel culture, there's also like the algorithm feeds on like sensationalism and anger. So if your thing pisses somebody off, that's good that
too.
Rewards you.
Yeah.
So if you're not, like, you could be really talented, but if there's nothing shocking or offensive, then it's very hard to get
And we live in a world of views and clicks, and now we've got like millions of people, going online to look at something, and you have access to things in a way that you didn't have in the 80s. You had like icons, and they would do specials, and you would go to Blockbuster, and you would rent Sunset on the Strip, Richard Pryor, or
I remember
Live at the
listening
Met, Robin Williams,
to Cosby's album or watching his special with my whole family, and we just were like, this is the best thing ever.
Of course. Well, and even the Cosby Show, like, it was a great show, and it was like in the 50s or whatever, like Fat Albert, Bill Cosby was the man, but it was a different time then, and like, this is a whole other can of worms, but really, just because somebody is brilliant doesn't mean they're a good person.
Yeah.
Like, you can be, a prodigy, and you can be funny, you can be musically inclined. John Lennon beat the shit out of Yoko Ono.
Do you think sometimes, people are like, do you think sometimes someone is really talented because they're a piece of shit? Like, it's almost like there's some aspect of you that's just irreparably garbage, and so you just start to focus on something else to make yourself redeemable.
That's interesting. So, like, I do believe, as characters, there's based on, yourself. And, when you think about a Chris Farley or a John Belushi, there was, I think, maybe an insecurity to be liked, or like a need to play this character, but part of these characters was them, is actually who they were. And so, if you're a douchebag or if you're a roaster or if you're somebody that likes to cut people down or, you're somebody that's insincere, but your sarcasm is funny, there's a career for you in stand-up comedy.
Okay, because then there's like a different thing. Because the Cosby thing is sort of like he had one face and was doing something evil behind it. Then there's like a more common thing that's like you and I could fall into this trap, which is like if you get laughs because you complain about your life, it encourages you to complain about your life. So then, like maybe you don't do it, but like I do a bit of meme comedy, right?
Right.
And then I think some people I see like their thing is to talk about how messy they are or to complain about stuff, and then it's like you literally get paid for that.
Yeah.
So then does that encourage you to keep this focus in your life that isn't maybe good for you?
Well, I think you can get addicted to the laughs. I think if you're saying something that's funny at your own expense and it's self-deprecating and people are liking it, then you're going to self-perpetuate that, where you will hate yourself maybe in real life and start realizing that that's what you need to do to be funny. And, I think comics, first of all, some of them can be very lonely and very sad and are dealing with very painful like struggles, and they've been hurt. Like I always saw myself as like a wounded animal, and like I do it as a way maybe to disassociate, to escape, to find some kind of way to kind of get that dopamine release on stage, whatever it is, to kind of deal with some kind of pain, and some kind of wound. And the people that are so incredibly funny will use that and spin it in a creative and really funny way. And ultimately, they're talking about themselves and their realities and their situation. And everybody's different, and everyone has a different brand of comedy. Ultimately, the audience will let you know if it's good.
Yeah. So I hear a lot of comics saying like, oh, I was always an attention seeker. I need a lot of validation. And I've never thought that about myself. But what I find, like, the more I do comedy is like you do get addicted to it.
You want the applause.
Because
they like me.
Yeah. And it's really, because I feel like, I guess I didn't think of myself as that kind of person. But now I'm like, that's like my favorite thing.
But here's a very important lesson to you younger comics out there. You want that from the audience. You don't need that from your peers. You don't need that from your fellow comics. You don't need the applause from somebody that's trying. It's like going to an open mic and getting the comics to laugh. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, they don't give a shit about you or your comedy. And so you don't need them to like you. You need them to be on good terms with.
Yeah.
And you need them to respect you. It's different, And you're trying to make them laugh, so maybe you'll get booked on their shows. But it's just like, you don't need to be friends with everybody. Not everybody's going to like you. And so you may fall into a trap where you're trying to impress somebody, with your comedy, and they hate you. Yeah. And you just got to accept that, because it's not how funny it is. It's just their perception of you. And so they're not going to book you on that show. Yeah. And that's just the way it is.
And I think there's something, like, it's hard because some people, their comedy isn't, like, certain types of comedy are more and less popular. And it's actually interesting because what's most popular with comics isn't what's most popular with audiences. So if you don't have all the comics in the scene appreciating your stuff, that doesn't mean you can't have millions of fans. Right. Because comics will lean towards some really weird stuff, some really absurdist stuff that doesn't make sense to a mainstream audience.
Yeah. Like, comics will say to you, like, nobody cares about you, nobody cares. Well, you know who cares? I care.
Yeah.
I care about how this ship is going and where it's going, and you know who this is important to? Me.
Yeah. Well, it's also frustrating to me because I've been at mics before where somebody is probably burned out. So they're feeling negative. So they get on the mic and start telling everyone at the mic they need to quit comedy and you're never going anywhere and this whole scene is bullshit. And I'm like, I think literally the scene keeps some people alive.
Absolutely.
And for me, it's been like just an incredible trip to see all these different personalities and the different jokes and the way people come alive on stage. Like, I wouldn't be doing this style of a podcast if I didn't find value in the different people. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so many eclectic, diverse people in the scene.
Yeah.
And so you have to take refuge, I guess, with your people and people that you gravitate to. And, you know, there's people that are not going to be like, I don't do cocaine. You know, like I'm not like that. Like I'm 41 now, you know, and so I'm older and I've lived a life a little bit, and you get to a point where, you know, you're not doing Molly with the boys anymore. And like, there's a certain group of guys that are going really hard. And like, I'm not partying like that anymore,
Yeah.
you know? And so I know that's not my crew, you know?
Yeah.
And there's certain mics, you know, that I'm not going to go to because, you know, it's not really my scene.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to be honest with ourselves about what's healthy, like
Right.
especially on a day-to-day basis. Like, I was sober for a number of years before I started doing stand-up, and so I felt comfortable like going into a bar.
Yeah.
But like, I know it's really hard for some people. They're newly sober and then they have to go to a bar all the time for work, so you want to kind of like make sure the people you're doing a show with at that bar are supportive and healthy and not gonna drag you down.
Yeah, like a comedy is a very dark place, and I'm saying that as an addict. I'm saying that as somebody that's being self-destructive. I'm saying that as somebody that wants that validation. I'm somebody that wanted that applause, and what allowed me to kind of move on from a lot of that is, you know, knowing that I'm good enough and that, you know, what I'm doing is enough, and that my expectations to want to produce great shows is enough, you know, and to get better as a comic and to think I'm funnier than I was last year is enough.
Yeah.
You know, and like I'm somebody that works really hard in this industry, and that's okay, and I'm glad to do it, and I'm not like, it's not that it's thankless, but it's something I do because I love it, you know, and I'm doing it selfishly. Like, I want to do stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
I want to do improv, and I want to produce shows, and so that's what I'm going to do, and I'm doing it because I love it. And so in terms of going on tour, like, I'm going to take myself on tour. You know, I'm going to take, like, if it's going to happen, it's going to be because I made it happen.
Yeah.
And I have a microphone, and I have, you know, an Eventbrite, and I'm going to little cities, and I'm doing shows, and I'm taking Fragile and Proud to the next level. And that's how you do it. And so I'm very honest about that now, where it's just like, if you put in the work, you'll be recognized. And if you're good, if you're undeniably good, you'll be recognized. But it doesn't mean you'll make money.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you'll be famous. And it doesn't mean shit, even if you're on Just for Laughs. You still got to pay the bills. You still got to feed your family. You still got to do whatever it is to survive.
Yeah.
And so, like, my measurement of success is, you know, I get to produce shows, and it's great.
Yeah.
And I'm doing well at it, and people like it. That's enough.
That's amazing. Can you tell me a little bit about Fragile and Proud? Like, is there a theme?
So it's, you know, based on family. It's based on social media, weird, irrational observations, sexy basketball.
What's sexy basketball?
Sexy basketball. I had a real thing with the announcers in basketball. And I just felt like all they talked about was like sexual innuendos, and you'd have like, you'd have the announcer being like, and then Dick checks into the game, double pump penetrates to the hole. He checks in for the submissive role player and he's getting dominated. It's a dirty facial. I'm going to write a letter. I don't know. So that kind of stuff. And just family, my lineage. And, I'm somebody that, I guess, has a lot of irrational observations about family, about my friends, about the world around me.
I love it. I love that so much. Oh my God. So we're coming to the end here, but I want to kind of, because you have so much going on, I want to just go through everything again. So first off, Northern Lights is your comedy festival.
Yep.
And that's
so September 12th to 14th in Algonquin Park at Camp Tamaqua. And we've got some really great Toronto comics like Chris Robinson, Ava Val, Ryan Beveridge, Danielle Kerr,
Evers.
Derek Kalala, Madison Cassidy, Lou Curry, Mo Ishmael. We've got a stacked lineup.
That sounds so amazing. So much talent.
And it's a 2-day getaway where you get camp activities, cabins, and food. So please join us.
Nice. And then you've got your standard shows.
Gluten-free comedy
At Comedy Bar.
At Comedy Bar. So the next one will be August 10th at 8:30, Sunday, August 10th. Come to that. And then Improv at, which I've toured almost 2 years with Danielle. That will be August 13th at Teddy Beer.
Nice.
So please come to that as well.
Okay, amazing. Thanks so much for coming on, Ben.
My pleasure. Thank you.